The Kevin Durant Rockets experiment is falling apart. The collapse nobody expected. Houston acquired Kevin Durant in a blockbuster trade. The idea was simple. They have the defense, the youth, the energy, the rebounding, everything except an elite closer, someone who can get a bucket whenever the game is on the line. Kevin Durant is literally the most qualified human being on earth for that job description. He has been that guy his entire career. Like, yeah, might have ashy knees, was a snake, and is a little too active on Twitter, but there are few players better than him at getting a bucket. In Golden State, in Brooklyn, even in Phoenix, when things were falling apart around him, he was still getting buckets in crunch time. So you put Kevin Durant on the Houston Rockets, and logically their closing problems disappear overnight, except the exact opposite happened. Houston became the worst team in the NBA at closing games after Durant arrived. 1-7 in overtime games this season, 16-18 in 3-minute clutch situations.
The Rockets traded for Kevin Durant. I didn't like the trades.
Those numbers are not some slump, they are showing a pattern. And the worst single example of everything going wrong happened in Minnesota, in what might be the most spectacular collapse of the entire NBA season. The Minnesota Nightmare Houston and Minnesota were basically tied in the Western Conference standings. High stakes game, overtime. The Wolves were missing Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert. 4 meaningful rotation players gone. Houston goes on a 13-0 run in overtime. 13-0, with their best player healthy and 4 of Minnesota's best players watching in street clothes. This should have been over, but then it unravels completely. Defenses break down. Mike Conley hits a 3, Kevin Durant gets double teamed, which is expected, and the Rockets can't capitalize from the perimeter, because nearly every player around Durant is a below average 3-point shooter. The one guy who can actually shoot threes is Sheppard, who coach Ime Udoka apparently does not trust enough to play in crucial moments. So that option is just removed from the table. A few plays later, Sheppard is guarding Dante DiVincenzo and just turns his head completely the wrong way. Back cut, easy pass, easy basket. Udoka calls timeout but leaves Sheppard in the game anyway because he needs someone who can hit a 3. Durant then sees a closeout, makes the right pass to Amen Thompson, and on literally any other contender that's a simple bucket. But Amen can't shoot, so he has to drive. He gets into traffic, can't finish, and the possession dies. Alperen Sengun on the defensive end of that same sequence is basically a traffic cone. Then Durant himself turns the ball over, which has been a recurring issue all season, and misses a free throw that could have tied the game. A team that was up 13 points in overtime loses. 1-7 in overtime games. By far the worst collapse of the entire NBA season, and this is with Kevin Durant on the roster. Shit happens in basketball, but this was something else entirely. Why the offense has fallen apart. So why does a team with Kevin Durant have a bottom 10 offense? Bottom 10 when half the league is actively tanking and not trying to win basketball games. Like, some teams are genuinely not trying to win games. That question deserves a real answer. The easy answer that a lot of people reach for is Ime Udoka. Just blame the coach, move on, and look, Udoka does have some genuine questions around his lineup decisions and his reluctance to play certain shooters in crucial moments. But the coaching critique alone doesn't explain the full picture. The real answer requires going back to the offseason and understanding what this team actually was before Durant arrived. Last season, the Rockets went from the 11th seed all the way to the 2 seed. Nobody predicted that. They built their identity around elite defense, elite rebounding, and enough offensive firepower from their young core to stay competitive every night. They were a legitimately exciting team, but they were missing exactly one thing: a reliable bucket getter late in games. Someone who, with 20 seconds left and the game tied, you just hand the ball to and get out of the way. Kevin Durant is that guy. So when Phoenix made him available, Houston made the move. Made complete sense on paper. Then everything broke. Losing the heartbeat of the team, Fred VanVleet, gets injured. And most people's reaction is something like, okay, that's unfortunate, next man up.
Rockets point guard Fred VanVleet has torn his ACL, according to multiple reports. Averaged 14 points, 5.5 assists a game for the Rockets last season.
14 points per game, 6 assists, 35% from 3. On paper, those are fine numbers, but not irreplaceable numbers. You'd think the Rockets could absorb that loss without completely falling apart. But here's what the stats don't show. Fred VanVleet was the on-court leader of this entire team, not just in terms of running the offense, but in terms of organizing everything, getting every player into their preferred spot, maximizing individual talents within the flow of the game. He argued with referees on his teammates' behalf. He was the guy every team needs, the one who speaks for the locker room, who sets the tone, whose presence makes everyone around him more comfortable and more effective. The Rockets gave him a maximum contract, and this is a front office that is famously reluctant to pay max money to anyone. This is the same organization that underpaid Alperen Sengun and even pushed back on Durant's contract. For that front office to look at Fred VanVleet and say yes, maximum contract, no hesitation, that tells you everything you need to know about how much he meant to what they were building. When he went down, they tried to replace his playmaking by committee, rotating through guys like Alperen Thompson at the point, it made everything worse. You can't replace a floor general with a guy who's still figuring out his own game. The Steven Adams factor. Now here's the part that almost nobody's talking about, which is genuinely strange because it might be the most important piece of the whole puzzle. Steven Adams went down with an ankle injury in January, and the Rockets lost their entire identity with him. Last season, Steven Adams set the all-time NBA record for grabbing his own team's missed shots by percentage. Not a record for a stretch, not a record for a single month. The all-time record. He was better than prime Dennis Rodman at offensive rebounding. His whole existence on that court was creating second chance opportunities out of nothing. The Rockets built their offensive approach around him. Get shots up, miss, Adams grabs it, second chance score, simple, effective, and when you have a player like that, it becomes a genuinely difficult system to defend. As a team, the Rockets were the #1 rebounding squad in the entire NBA. That was their identity, that was their foundation, and then they lost him. And with him, they lost everything that made their offense functional on a possession-by-possession basis. You genuinely cannot lose the two most important players to a team's core identity in the same season and expect things to hold together. It's not possible. You lose Fred VanVleet, and the offense loses its organization. You lose Steven Adams, and the offense loses its second chance foundation. Now you have Kevin Durant trying to be the entire offense by himself on a team that was never built to function that way. The Durant fit problem. Here's where it gets uncomfortable because Durant himself hasn't been perfect either. His numbers look fine on the surface, 26 points per game, all-star selection, doing what a scorer does. But effectiveness is about more than counting stats, and the fit issues are real and visible every single night. The core problem is spacing. Nearly every player around Durant on this roster is a below-average three-point shooter. Alperen Thompson can't shoot. Alperen Sengun is not a perimeter threat. When Durant gets doubled, which every team does now because they know help defense is safe against Houston's roster, the kick-out options are largely players. Defenders can sag off without any real consequence. That makes Durant's job exponentially harder and neutralizes the one thing he's always been able to count on, his ability to read a collapsing defense and find open shooters. Reed Sheppard exists on this roster and actually can shoot, but the coaching staff doesn't seem to trust him in big moments, which creates a weird situation where the one piece that could partially solve the spacing problem keeps getting reduced minutes when the game actually matters. Stupid roster usage, honestly. There are also reports, and it's worth noting these come from sources that aren't exactly tier 1 NBA insiders, suggesting that Durant hasn't bonded well with his teammates since arriving in Houston, that locker room chemistry hasn't clicked, that some players quietly miss the guys who were traded away to get Durant in the first place. If there's even partial truth to that, it matters. Durant has dealt with similar whispers in Brooklyn and in Phoenix. There's a version of events where that baggage traveled with him to Houston. The alleged burner account situation has also resurfaced. Reports suggest Durant used anonymous accounts to comment critically on a teammates shooting and defense.
I know you gotta ask these questions, but I'm not here to get into Twitter nonsense.
Whether that's true or not, the mere fact that people inside the building apparently believe it's true creates a tension that doesn't go away easily. Locker room trust is fragile, and once doubt creeps in, it affects everything from play calls to shot selection to effort on defensive rotation. What this team was always actually building. Here's the context that got completely lost when Durant arrived and everyone started talking about championship windows. The Houston Rockets were never supposed to be a contender right now. That 2 seed last season was genuinely unexpected. The organization knew it, the coaching staff knew it, even the players knew it. This was a rebuilding team that got lucky with timing. Other teams going through similar rebuilds hit the lottery in the draft. Pistons got Cade Cunningham, Spurs got Wembanyama, Mavericks got Cooper Flagg. The highest Houston ever drafted during their rebuilding years was 2nd overall for Jalen Green.
I mean, it hurts, Houston is home to me and forever will be home to me.
They've been building carefully with what they had available, not with generational lottery luck. The Durant trade happened because he became available at a price Houston could actually afford to pay, not because the front office decided the rebuild was finished and it was time to compete for rings. The Rockets still have substantial trade assets. They know they're not a finished product. The plan was never Durant plus whoever else they could field in year 1. The plan is still evolving with a healthier roster next season and another major move that everyone in the league expects to be coming. Durant was supposed to accelerate a timeline not completed, where things go from here. Right now, the Rockets sit as a 6th seed, which would put them against the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round, a team that has embarrassed Houston twice on their own home court this season. That is not a favorable matchup, and everyone knows it. But zooming out, the Durant season being disappointing doesn't mean the franchise is broken. It means 1 year didn't go as planned, which happens to every team that has ever existed. Next season, if Van Vliet is healthy, if Adams is back, if the young core continues developing, and if the roster gets reshaped around Durant in a way that actually gives him shooters to play with, this could look very different very quickly. The problem right now is that Durant signed up to be a finishing piece for a complete team, and instead became a one-man offense on a broken roster. That's not what anyone agreed to, and whatever the chemistry situation actually looks like inside that locker room, it clearly hasn't helped. The Kevin Durant Rockets experiment isn't a failure yet, but year one has been a genuine mess, and pretending otherwise doesn't help anyone. If you enjoyed watching this, drop a like and subscribe for more NBA content. We'll keep tracking what happens in Houston because this story is nowhere near over. See you in the next one.